And so in that paper, I saw this diagram, and you have this digital identity in the center. Every entity, every device, every person, everything, every tree, everything will have a digital identity. And that digital identity is going to be used to unlock your access to financial services, healthcare, telecommunications, government programs, social platforms, logging into the internet, travel and mobility, just everything you do in your life. You need your digital identity to unlock it. So by default, a digital identity implies that you're always in a digital prison. Yes. And you need permission to get out of that prison. By default, you're always a prisoner. That is how you have to kind of, understand how this digital identity is going to be used. And this is a 2018 WEF paper that was published. And so for your digital identity, you need identity integrity. Like, for instance, there's a concept called know your customer that banks are using, right? So it's basically taking steps to a digital identity. And how is that digital identity going to be authenticated? Through your face to unlock access. And your face and your digital identity will be linked to a new type of currency, which is the central banking digital currency. And it'll have a combination of water and carbon scoring for you and carbon credits. It'll have social scoring and your medical status based on vaccines and jabs and other medical things that they want you to have. So essentially, just think about it as, if you don't comply, because these are all compliance-based things inside the currency. If you don't comply, your currency becomes lower and lower. If your currency becomes lower, your digital ID cannot unlock access to life.
And I want to say here, just this week, and I've been speaking about this quite a few times already this week, the Indonesian health minister said he was calling on the G20 to adopt vaccine passports in line with the WHO standards now in preparation for the next pandemic. The WHO Immunization Agenda 2030 plans to introduce 500 new vaccines by 2030. People think I'm crazy when I say that. It's in their own documents. Immunization Agenda 2030, it's there. Now, they're saying, the Indonesian health minister is saying, let's have a digital health certificate acknowledged by the WHO. If you have been vaccinated or tested properly, then you can move around. Australia's pandemic preparedness plan talks about citizens regularly submitting to DNA collection of samples and things to prevent further pandemics. This vaccination status is key, and your submission to regular medical procedures is key for your digital identity to function. You won't be able to have it unless you get continuous vaccines. And I keep going back to my first interview with Karen Kingston. It's the most bombshell interview, and I'm going to link it in the description below, because in that interview, she proves from the patents every single vaccine approved by the World Health Organization is a lifelong subscription. They will never stop this.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things to understand is that if you don't sign on to a digital ID, and if there's a critical mass of people, I think most will just walk into it unknowingly.
Yes.
Through deception or through so-called force, just like they had people taking the vaccines to travel freely. Yes. But if there's a critical mass that doesn't sign on to the digital ID, then this agenda gets weakened substantially.
Absolutely.
Right. So one needs to therefore understand, in conclusion, is that the digital ID is really your ticket to being in the digital prison permanently.
Forever. This is exactly why we're doing what we're doing right now, Armand. When I tell people about this stuff on the street, regular people, strangers, they say, I don't want to be part of that. And so the only way to do it is to understand the agenda so that you can resist it. And we will talk, you and I, we will talk about how to do that later and how to be free from this system. We're going to have that discussion. But first, we have to hit people with this is actually what it looks like if we don't say no.
That's right. So how are they going to implement it in practicality on your computer, for instance, right? There's a new... relatively new concept in cybersecurity protocols called zero trust. So by default, since you have a digital identity and you're in a prison, you are by default a criminal. So we don't trust you. Every time you need to get access to something which you think is legitimate, even to buy food, by default, we don't trust you, and you have to prove you are you, and you have all the compliance metrics through your CBDC to be able to, access whatever you need to access. So in the old days, like when you log into your computer, you or your cell phone, you put in a password, and then after that, you pretty much have access to all your applications on your computer. So that's called implicit allow. Like there's one gateway you enter in, and you're implicitly allowed to do whatever you can. The zero trust protocol is a default deny. So we are going from implicit allow to default deny worlds. And at the heart of this is your digital ID. So think of it as default deny, and you have to, for everything you're doing in your life all the time, every step you're taking, whether it's to open your car, start your engine, put in gasoline, log into your computer, log into an application, call your friend, by default, the world has been locked up. And you are in this inverted prison. While you may not see locks outside you, but the locks are all there, and you have to keep unlocking your life. Right? So here's an example when you go shopping. How is zero trust going to be used? Here's a lady, she wants to go and buy some beef, but let's say her carbon footprint or her beef footprint for the month has been exceeded. That door won't open. Right? If she wants to buy, say, apple juice, but she's had too much sugar because they're tracking everything, that door won't open. Right? And at the heart of this is your digital ID. And the whole concept of digitalization, which is a relatively new term also coming from the World Economic Forum, it means conditional access. So to access anything in life, there are conditions. This is all linked to your digital ID. It's all about being a prisoner all the time. And there'll be a face recognition camera at the top of each of the doors looking at you and figuring out who you are and what your digital ID represents.
And of course, people that think that they'll just be shopping from home, your phone will be doing the exact same thing that the doors of the fridges will be doing.
Exactly. Right? So there's a bunch of companies that have started, it's called IDaaS, Identity as a Service. There are face recognition as a service. So lots and lots of companies are building businesses around this. And every time anyone's face is in front of a camera, there's a chain of corporations making money, from camera companies to IDaaS companies to networking companies, cybersecurity companies, the whole shebang. And it's since human beings are everywhere, this is one of the ways that they have come up very creatively, that anytime there's a face in front of a camera, which is going to be most of the time since people are always on their devices, there's continuous chain of data and therefore money being made. Right? And there's another concept called geofencing, if people are not familiar with it. But it means that they can just think of it as an invisible fence around you or somebody at a certain distance beyond which you cannot go. Right? And so your face and digital ID is going to be used for controlling your access by implementing a geofence, depending again on your, your currency, your digital currency. Right? So where you can fly in the world, that can be limited. How far you can drive, that can be limited. How far you can walk, and this is related to your 15-minute cities or 20-minute neighborhoods. They can implement this. And they don't need guards. They don't need prison guards at the outskirts to stop you. They have the LED lights and the LED weapons. They have the microwave weapons, as well as they have the digital currency can be shut off, right? So you move 15 minutes out, your currency won't work. You can't buy anything. So you are not going to be motivated to leave.
And they call them districts, Aman, in Sydney, here where they're testing it. They're actually calling them districts.
Yeah, I read about that not too long ago. In San Francisco, they've had districts for a very, very long time. But I don't know at what point they're going to start implementing it over in California, but they will.
Oh,
I think the agendas are going full speed ahead in Australia more than any other country.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.